While the racing season gears up for SRO Motorsports America, that's typically when virtual racing and eSports take a backseat for the year. But this time, while hauler drivers are loading cars up for the multi-day journey out to the West Coast, 40 of the best sim racers in North America are jumping back in their sim rigs in iRacing to begin a journey of their own. It's 7 rounds across 7 of the best tracks in the world, replicating the fierce racing found in the Toyota GR Cup North America Series. This field of sim racers is as stacked as the real thing, and some drivers are even racing in both. This is the Toyota GR Cup North America Esports League, and it all begins now. Welcome to Sonoma, California. I'm Kyle Heyer, joined today by Justin Prince. Justin, welcome aboard for the first of 7 rounds. This is going to be spectacular.
And that's an understatement, because when you're talking about a field like this for this series to kick things off, you have a good mixture of some of your top racers in all of this class of racing on iRacing. You also include some of the top oval racers of the platform for NASCAR, and even some real-world racers making the crossover. Today should be an exciting one, to say the very least.
Oh, I can't wait for it. Again, we're following the real schedule from the Toyota GR Cup North America Series, kicking things off here next week in the real world at Sonoma, California. But today, this afternoon, we're racing in iRacing. And Justin, this is going to be an interesting weekend because we're racing for 60 minutes. This race is actually longer than that race that we'll see next weekend. We'll see 2 of them, in fact, but just one 60-minute race, a big full fuel tank in these Toyota GR86 Cup cars. So that's a whole new dynamic in this event.
Not expecting pit stops per race control and per the driver's meeting, but we are expecting a lot of intensity because here at Sonoma, the long layout, lots of opportunities for dives, especially into the final chicane and the carousel. It should be a wild one.
It certainly will be. Here's a look for this season. It's going to be a really interesting show. We'll get on track here for qualifying in a couple of moments' time. But here is the field, as on the left-hand side of your screen. Qualifying is already underway at the moment. And Justin, the Real World Series, again, tracks across some of the best racetracks in North America with SRO Motorsports America. Of course, these cars have a stock F824 engine under the hood. They've got that set of 6-speed sequential transmission in them, some aero bits, and some electronics from Bosch Motorsport. So they are very well tuned up to go racing. And this car has been meticulously replicated in the iRacing platform, and they've got a setup on these cars which should allow them to slice and dice and slide around quite a bit. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch today, especially with drivers that are making appearances from eNASCAR and other series across the iRacing Pro spectrum.
Yeah, with a lot of what we talked about coming into today, these drivers are going to have some challenges, yes, in terms of some of the cornering maneuvering, but when it comes to this type of car on the platform, the GR86 has become one of the more popular ones you can race because it's one of those where you can pick it up and drive very well. You have the opportunity to use a bit of the draft, but you also have that opportunity to try and make some slicing and dicing moves. Once you get that expertise down, it becomes an exciting car to drive. And that's why so many drivers gravitate towards this car on the platform as one to be able to get their feet wet on the road courses, but also be able to get their feet wet in door-to-door style racing.
Absolutely, and one of the great benefits of this race car is that it's designed from the ground up to be a driver's car, right? Lightweight, front-engine, rear-wheel drive. This is the classic sports car formula in the real world and in iRacing. And of course, we've got those Continental slick tires. And at some point this season, perhaps not in this opening round, Justin, but at some point this season, we do expect to see some moisture. And we'll get those Continental wet weather tires out for a bit of a test. I'm very excited to see that be a part of this championship as well. To win this championship, you've got to be the best in the country. That's no doubt about that. There's also cash prizes on the line here, Justin. The champion gets over $2,500, but even in each race, there are cash prizes to be handed out.
Yes, the chance for lots of opportunities for prizes, but also the chance to be able to try and gather the points for the championship. For the races themselves, $300 for the winner, $200 for second, third for $100, all the way down to the top 8 receiving prize money for each of the races. But the goal is simple. You win the championship, you get $2,500. You get second, $1,500. Third place gets $1,000. That's a lot of money on the line, to say the least. But it's also, for many of these drivers, the goal: get points, build up the prize pool, get a championship.
certainly on the minds of everybody right now as qualifying is underway. Of course, we mentioned we're here at Sonoma Raceway, and this is a fantastic racetrack, 2.5 miles and 12 corners. And let's have a look here at our Continental track preview here, Justin. 12 turns and a lot of elevation change. It happens in a hurry here at Sonoma. There's a lot of racetracks where you climb up a couple hundred feet over the course of the lap, but here you do it in a couple of corners. Turns 1, that's a pretty fast left-hander. Then the top of the hill at turn 2 before you head down to turn 3. Quick left-hander up to turn 4. That might be a passing zone if you're desperate, but really turn 7, Justin, is where you're aiming.
Yeah, as long as you get the run out of turn 6 through the carousel up to 7, chance up the inside, keep it to the inside, get it done before the S's. If you don't get it done well there's a good opportunity coming out of turn 10, build up the speed for the hard dive up to turn 11 where the tire barriers are. You get that done there, you get that opportunity before you end the lap.
Yeah, so it happens in a hurry here. About 1 minute and 43 seconds around this lap. Ethan Lampe currently on provisional pole at the moment with a 1:43.741. Now, this is one of the drivers, Justin, that you highlighted in the pre-race here. He's going to be one to watch. He was fastest in practice, and by 47 thousandths of a second, he's on top of the board.
Lampe amongst those with a lot of experience at the platform when it comes to this car. I'm expecting him to be a front runner with how he showcased the speed early in the practice session and how he's been able to outrun some of the top drivers coming in from the league scene and from some of the special events. He's going to be somebody that's going to feel a lot of pressure, yes, but with how he's been handling these corners, Lampe's not going to be easy to touch with the pace he's already been setting. He's been in this ballpark the whole race session so far.
Working his way through turn number 7. Now, if you're keen-eyed, you'll notice that this isn't necessarily the track layout that will be running next week in Sonoma for the real series. That series runs a slightly different layout. When you come over here through the S's, you'll just kind of keep left and head down to the chicane. But we're going to use the fast S's here in iRacing, and Lampe works his way around on a cool-down lap at the moment before he sets up for another one. 17 minutes left in qualifying, and this is one of the differences between this and the real-world Toyota GR Cup North America Series, Justin. Long qualifying, 30 minutes. That's double what they get in the real world, and the race is longer as well, 60 minutes to the 45 that will run next week. So the dynamics of this race are a bit different. You noted that we're not going to have pit stops, but that just means you have to manage tires all that much more as Vicente Salas jumps to the top of the board at a 1:43.696.
And I think Salas, you can also throw into the mix of people to keep an eye on because he's raced with teams like Williams eSports and with Tony Kanon's team this year. Keep an eye on the 11 machine throughout the day today because he's somebody that he has the opportunity to be able to not only perform well in eNASCAR, has been able to perform at the top level in eNASCAR, is one of the drivers considered to potentially be at the least top half of the field for points. Now, getting to the point, though, of managing the tires, one of the biggest talking points whenever asking drivers about this car is you got to keep the front tires underneath you. It's pretty prevalent, even in a 25-minute race, we've seen drivers fall off a good second if they've cooked those front tires. You've got to make sure that Continental rubber isn't cooked, or else you're dropping from the front to the back fast.
And managing that front to rear grip is one of the beauties of this very well-balanced race car, right? Because you've got enough power in the rear to kick the rear end out in those slower corners. You've got enough point in the nose to put it wherever you want it, but you have to make sure that you're not sliding the car on the front or the rear and wearing those tires unevenly, because on a day like today, it could get pretty warm. It's in the mid-70s right now, but if it warms up, you could be beating up your tires a bit more than you'd like in this long race. As we continue to qualify, though, we've got 43 drivers in this field. Some of them are not running for points. They are what we're calling wild card drivers here today, Justin. One of those is John Jesbray, the number 68. He's running in Pirelli GT4 America this year, and you see him heading down into turn number 11. One of those wildcard drivers, along with Weston Workman, another driver that will be joining us in the JBL livery this season. Jordan Rick Segrini is here as well. Aiden Yoder in his Segra number 44 Toyota, and a handful of others. So there is some real talent packed in here along with those eSports regulars.
Good opportunity to have some fun for some of the rear-world drivers. It takes a lot of expertise to get the track down, to get the practice down, yes, because you're talking about the differences between feeling the real car, the real sensations through the chassis and through your body and through the car as a whole. You have to basically mitigate that in the virtual world through your steering wheel, through if you have certain different parts, through maybe the seat. you don't have that same visual representation either. But for a lot of drivers, it's a great training tool, and it's a great opportunity for many of these drivers to get to the track virtually before seeing it in person.
Absolutely. Treat it like a testing session. Why wouldn't you? It's a great opportunity to do that. There's a good look at Logan McKenzie. We've got all the drivers available with onboard cameras here today as well, so we can get to look inside their sim rigs and see what kind of Fanatec gear they're using. There's McKenzie heading down towards turn number 11 behind a couple of other competitors. I think that's Jordan Rick Segrini, who is running for points, but is also one of our real-world drivers for the BSI Racing Camp. There he is, working his way through. And all but one driver has laid down a time so far, but it's still Salas at the top of the board, and then Ethan Lampe in second.
Yeah, the pace continued to pick up, but already faster than the fastest practice times here. But as expected, though, with the session like this, too, one of the things that maybe thought about a lot is finding a drafting partner and hoping someone doesn't slam the brakes in front. That's Andre Castro, who just discombobulated Lampe, it looks like, because of that quick check up. Castro, one of the rear-wheel drivers as well, most recently in the NASCAR Xfinity Series on top of road racing.
Yeah, here's a look at this again. And this is one of the complications of running in the real world is, when you've got this open qualifying session, you have to make sure you stay out of the way. And Castro tried, but Lampe thought he was going to get a slipstream off of him and had to bail out. That's a scenario I've seen happen a number of times, but Castro's just trying to do the right thing, Justin, but sometimes you just can't hit the disappear button.
Yeah, and at the same time, he's just playing the game of, I wanted to draft off of him instead. Why should I give him draft? It's almost the battle that we see at a lot of tracks with this car, but might see a fair bit at the drafting circuits as a whole this season, is drivers just want to be able to get that extra pull down the straights. Funnily enough, in a lot of cases, in my opinion, Kyle, I've seen drivers do better without draft at tracks like this, though.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And Sonoma isn't one of the tracks that will really circle slipstream as a huge motivator for making passes. Certainly into turn 7, you can use that opportunity with a bit of slipstream, but you really need the longer straightaways where you're kind of at the maximum velocity of these cars for a bit longer. VIR will absolutely be one of those racetracks. Circuit of the Americas, Sebring, which is the second round of the championship. Those are the tracks that you're going to see that a lot. This time it can be a hindrance, though. There's a lot of stop and start here and a lot of undulations and a lot of compromising lines you can take to set up for the next straightaway that will slow you up on entry, and especially in qualifying when you're trying to maximize speed around the whole lap, it can often just be a distraction.
And that's why I always feel like being able to get at least a little bit of space gets you the chance to just focus instead of having the multiple variables of, you follow the driver in front normally. If that driver in front of you makes a mistake, you're following them into the same mistake and costing yourself time because of their mistake. Just find the pocket of space and you can get to work.
Just over 11 minutes remaining here in qualifying. Let's look down the order a little bit. There are some other drivers worth mentioning here all through the field. Here's Blake Townend in the number 57, and I know a handful of these drivers from other eSports championships, Justin, and it's just so interesting to me how, you can change the car, you can change the racetrack, you can change the country that the series is operating in, but you can't seem to shake the talent out of drivers like Blake Townend and others. They are just persistently at the front in any championship, and there's that RD SimSport number 57 working his way through turn 7.
Right now, going to need to gain a lot of time, though. RD SimSports machine is currently a good near second off the pole time. But you're right about that. As we've talked about, a lot of these drivers run in the league scene. A lot of them run against each other commonly. For example, one of the drivers that are in this mid-grouping right now, Chris Wett's amongst those that's in that camping of grouping of drivers. You have several drivers who work on the oval side who've also picked up this car through Road Series. You also talk about some of those drivers like Polasek we mentioned, like Andrew Sharp that comes to mind from one of the top leagues that happens during the weekdays. One of the best things you can do is be able to race against the best to be prepared for when you meet them, when money's on the line like this.
And money is on the line, and that's the other thing that makes this intriguing. It's not just points, it's cash. And that was one of the big drawing factors to this is not only can you show up and drive one of the best cars, I think, in iRacing. Yes, you can show up, you can race for dollars. And there's a handful of drivers that are going for that right now at the very top of the board. Less than a tenth between the top 3. Here's Micah Hendricks, who's jumped into the top 5 in the number 73, with about a tenth and a half off of Salas's pole time at the moment.
Yeah, one of several drivers with WJM Motorsports, and this is an interesting one because they've seen a lot of rapid growth, it seems, as of late. They had just 5-6 drivers in the past couple weeks. All of a sudden, 4 new drivers with their livery, and all the sponsors they've been able to pick up as of late with some of the shuffling on the oval side, especially for team backing, coming up big. But I think this replay, I'm curious, this is not what you want to do in qualifying. If you do that in a race, you might spin it.
No, that's Max Hewitt joining us here today, and a little bit hot through turn 10 there, a little bit of off-roading in that number 22, but pulls it back on track. He's struggling a little bit for pace here at the moment, and John Jesbray has yet to get a lap time, but we'll keep our eyes on some of these drivers. Big calamity up at turn 1. There's a couple cars spearing off in different directions, but get it all out of the way now, because when that 60-minute race comes time to go green, you don't get any second chances. No reset button after the first lap.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to end up having to go down to the pit lane with damage after lap 1 of a championship. It really puts you on the back foot. But I was talking about this just moments ago with some of the oval expertise and some of the road expertise expanded. Matt Adams amongst the many who are representing Dead Zone Racing, one of the top technical alliances in all of eNASCAR competition. This is going to be a grouping of drivers you'll have to keep an eye on who will be working together a lot. Justin Nasir in that grouping. You also throw into the mix there Nate Stewart, who's been one of the more intriguing prospects for the Coke Series as of late. All these drivers are just saying, let's stay in the same group and I'll help you over the radio.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that will help immensely at some of the larger racetracks, just having people in your corner, right? And sometimes at a track like this, you can't really slipstream and bump draft or do anything of that sort, but you can absolutely help each other avoid running into each other at the very least. That's the best you can do. But how about Christopher Sievert in the 39 up to 3rd place? This is a great looking livery on this car, and very good lap time as well. Puts him just 75 thousandths off of Salas's pole.
Yeah, great speed for the Santa Rosa, California driver. Notice this as well from one of his fellow paint scheme mates who's following right behind, and Cameron Martineau. Both of those drivers, solid competitors when it comes to this style of racing too on the platform. And I think there's a good chance we see them at least in the top 10, at least with Martineau. I've seen Martineau personally in the league scene be able to beat a lot of these drivers by a sizable margin. Just keeping it clean seems to be the tough part at some moments for drivers like Martineau, I've noticed over the league scene at times.
Yeah, we'll keep our eyes on those team combinations. Here's Aiden Yoder again in the Segra number 44. P37 at the moment, but only a second off of pole. That's how tight things are at the front of the field. And let's talk a little bit about the schedule as well, because we're starting things off here in Sonoma, California. We're following the Real World Series schedule to Sebring, COTA, VIR, Road America, Barber, and Indianapolis. This will run all the way through September 21st, a long way from now, but very different tracks on this calendar between Sonoma and a place like Road America. This is very tight and I guess very precise. Road America's, that's a place where you'll be full throttle, 90% of the lap slipstreaming, working with your friends. And then you've got tracks that are kind of in between. You've got the tricky ones like COTA. You've got the flowing tracks like Barber. There's a great combination of tracks around the country as Yoder goes for a slide in turn 2.
Yeah, this is actually one of the more challenging ones you can start with because of that elevation change, and there's so many opportunities for wheel hop and off tracks. But a racetrack like Sebring will really open things up and emphasize a lot of the teamwork you may need to utilize on a track with this car. That finale at Indianapolis Motor Speedway is going to be a thrower, though, with that type of track, because it's the combination, when you think about it, the draft down the front stretch, but also the technical in the infield.
Oh, it's a great racetrack for this kind of racing. We actually got to race there 3 times last year because we had a race at Nashville canceled, so it was moved to the Indianapolis race weekend, home of the Indianapolis 8-hour presented by AWS. And what a weekend it was. 3 races. It was a lot of cars on track all weekend long, and what a fantastic facility that place is to host the season finale for the 2024 Toyota GR Cup North America Series. Getting down to the wire here, though, in qualifying, Justin, as we've got just about 5 minutes remaining. And not a lot has shifted at the top 5 the last couple of laps, but I'm looking elsewhere as Elliot Budzinski jumps up to 11th. He just made up a whole bunch of spots and puts himself just on the cusp of a top 10 starting spot.
Well, the tough thing is the track's getting hotter, as you talked about, not going to get any cooler. It's gone up about 3-4 degrees Fahrenheit in the past few minutes alone, I've noticed, off and on. And that's one thing to think about. We talked about the weather and the changes with the rain. There's also, in theory, the thoughts with the sun. Noticed a lot of more variance with the sun out compared to before the build. And that's something a lot of these drivers are managing a lot with that. Why we're seeing so many drivers say, I'm going to come in and get fresh rubber, then go back out. You can run maybe 2-3 laps optimally, full out with those tires, and then you have to swap them based on the iRacing platform to be able to try and get optimized qualifying time.
Kevin Roll jumping, curbing. See his triple screens. This is helpful in a place like this with a lot of hairpins and corners where you're basically doing a 180. See out the corners of your screen, and virtual reality helps as well. But Kevin rolled up to 10th place here, just about 2/10 off of provisional pole for the moment. And great looking rig he's got there. And I always love to see inside the rigs as drivers are participating in championships like this, because you see them wear their emotions on their sleeve and the intensity of competition. While normal iRacing competition is fierce, Justin, as you and I both know, when there's dollars on the line and there's glory on the line and it's something like this, things just step up 5 notches.
Exactly. You have to make sure everything's buckled down. You have to make sure every piece of equipment doesn't have a function. You better make sure everything's screwed in tightly, because you don't want to be that one driver who, say, that actually happened to broadcast earlier in the week, end up having your shifter fall off and crash the field. You do not want to be that driver in this type of field. And it's also interesting to see the variance of equipment throughout the field in an event like this too, because for some, it's let's go to the store and buy the $10,000 rig. That's great. But then there's some who don't have that resource available and have to say, let's get the HD TV from the living room, put my steering wheel on the desk, and let's drive.
Ben Blaustein's doing just that, and you know what? It's not holding them back at all, I don't think. And this is just something that comes with time. You get comfortable with the material that you've got at hand, and really, I think, you know, the higher end gear gets you some consistency, but boy, you and I have seen some incredible drives by people with not a lot of gear. Just really cool to see.
I've seen drivers drive with just 16-inch screens and do well. Like, for the longest time, the original Xbox 360 steering wheel was a solid beginner wheel in the 2000s and 2010s. A lot of people kept their Logitech T27s from years ago until they started dying off for the past couple of years. After 10, 20 years, people get determined and also get very dedicated to running with the equipment they start with.
But Andre Castro jumping up to 4th place. This is a driver you pointed out in pre-broadcast, Justin, and look at him up inside the top 5. I think we're going to see a very competitive start to this race. Big jump over the curbs there at turn 3, and then down to turn 4. Someone's going for a wobble. That's the 27. Spearing off at turn 4. Sam Adams has gone for quite the ride.
One of the things we'll see today is difficulty to the curbing up the hillside, and I think that's what Adams may have just done, because you get the angle for the left, right, wrong, like right here. Just launches him up off the air, off the racetrack. The air doesn't have traction, as I put it, and once you're hopping around like that, you are not having a good time.
No, that is definitely a little higher than you want to be on the curbing, and goes out for a ride into the sand. And this isn't Circuit of the Americas. We're not going to have tons of runoff available like we will in a couple of weeks' time. So you've got to treat the track as a non-renewable resource. When you get to the edge, that is it. Although they do put some of those nicely painted blue and yellow curbs out there to help you rotate the car, but that can get you into trouble if you use and abuse that little bit of extra pavement. 40 seconds left here in qualifying, Justin, and we're getting down to the very end of this session. And Vincent Salas has still got provisional pole by 45 thousandths of a second, right alongside Ethan Lamping.
Vicente coming off that race at Circuit of the Americas we were talking about before today in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. It's towards the back portion of the field, but he's also, mind you, one of the top go-kart race SKUs. Going to be interesting how he performs the rest of the season. Others like Christopher Saberto, amongst those, when you look towards the background, running with some of the rear world teams expanding, like ST Racing you may recognize from the rear world. That's where some of that art scheme is from one of their race cars. A lot of teams are continuing to try to expand that presence, and where a lot of those drivers then look towards is, and those said teams is, the people who have the experience to get it done. Hence why you have Martineau. Hence why you especially have the 39 of Sivert, to be able to get their program speed from the onset. We've seen a lot of great performances, mind you, from Martineau in SRO competition, especially the past few years.
Absolutely. One of the drivers that we've seen across a variety of simulators as well. Of course, SRO Competizione, where all of our GT championships are run here on SRO Motorsports eSports side. But using iRacing because of the involvement with Toyota and TRD and this GR Cup Series car in the simulator. And it's been a pleasure to be back with iRacing for this particular project. But cars are rolling down the pit lane here. Track is still open, but once you cross the start-finish line, your lap is over. Joshua Soto, a driver I've seen in plenty of series, including the full SenSims series over on iRacing. He is up to 26th place. Great look at graphics on this car. And Christian Menzies as well coming to the finish in the number 25, and Ryan Doucette, which you pointed out also, Justin, another driver, current eNASCAR competitor, making it known on the road racing side.
Yeah, he's currently 29th in the eNASCAR iRacing Series standings, but has been able to get some big wins before. He's going to need a lot of places picked up. 28th at the end of the session. He's going to need some luck.
And Weston Workman for JBL and Copeland Motorsports comes to a stop right at the tail end of qualifying here. And that should about do it for the qualifying moments here. We've got just about 50 seconds left. Let's take a quick look at the results here before we tick on over. And we'll have a quick gander. At the top, Vincenti Salas, Ethan Lampe, Chris Sivert, Andre Castro, and Thomas Bellum in your top 5. But looking down the order, it is a pretty stacked field, as we pointed out.
Yeah, that difference between the pole all the way to 42nd is only within 2 seconds. So even having a few mistakes during your most optimal run was very like the difference between a top 10 and a top 30. But that's just what we usually see on the platform. The field is very tight at the top, when it comes to your best competitors. You have to qualify well to be able to get the track position.
And there's a look at the tail of the order there, 31st down to 43rd. It is a big field here as the checkered flag officially falls here on qualifying. It is complete, and we'll head down to the racetrack in just a moment's time to kick off the first of our 7 rounds here. 1 hour is our race distance, and this is the moment, Justin, even as experienced as some of these drivers are, do they still get butterflies sitting on this grid?
I think some do, because when you have a competition level like this, when you have lots of the talent you have like this, you have to be able to perform near perfectly. And for a race like today, those standards are going to be extremely high for those drivers. Again, 43 strong in the field. This grid is going to be a fun one to see in the next couple seconds.
Yeah, they are gridding up. They will have a full pace lap to get their virtual Continental tires ready to go racing. Of course, they won't need to pit at any point. There's a nice big fuel cell in these cars that is plenty long enough for a 60-minute adventure here around Sonoma Raceway. But once again, you're watching the Toyota GR Cup North America eSports League, race 1 of 7 from Sonoma, California, here at iRacing. I'm Kyle Heyer, joined by Justin Prince, and this is going to be just a spectacular show, I'm absolutely sure. But as always, the keys to the race here, Justin. We already mentioned track limits, staying in the bounds, staying on the playing field here. But keeping the car on the road is only part of that battle. Keeping your car out of your competitors is another. There's that old adage, to finish first, you must first finish.
You also have to be smart on the passes as a result. You don't want to be the driver who is bumping into other competitors and then all of a sudden you're out of the race because of damage or because of incidents you caused. You've got to be smart to be able to cut through this field. Also a critical thing, making sure you're in that lead group. We've seen battles separate the pack significantly. One battle that takes too long could be the difference of you running top 10 and having to catch up for a good 10-20 minutes.
And almost everybody is gridded, and in just a moment they will peel off and head around for 2.5 miles of pacing and getting themselves set to go racing. A couple looks around the field here. Here's Nate Stewart getting set to go racing, pulling the gloves on and sending one last text, but the field is away, and it's time to get set for this first round. All right, about 35 laps is going to be our lap distance, but again, it's by time. And any final thoughts here, Justin, before we run through the order?
The quick thought is simple. Make sure you play this smart from the get-go. This is going to be a high-intent start. You have to be able to make sure you don't send yourself into chaos. Be smart on how you play this, because this grid is fierce. If you look at who's in this grid, it's pretty significant. Vicente Salas up on the pole, set the time by a couple hundredths. Ethan Lampy alongside. Row number 2, Christopher Savert alongside Real Road Racer Andre Castro. Thomas Bellman was very quiet in this session, but set the top 5 pace alongside Micah Hendricks. You throw in Jason Landry and Paul Darling. That grouping of drivers has a lot of experience at this level. Logan McKenzie has the chance to work with the teammate of Landry from 9th, Michael Polasek in 10th.
And Kevin Roll will kick things off on the inside of row number 6. Sam Adams starts alongside him in the 27 in 12th. It's Matt Adams returning for another eSports championship alongside Elliot Budzinski in the number 91. Then it's Jordan Rick Segrini, who will be racing in the Real Series in BSI Motorsports this season. He'll roll off 15th alongside Cameron Martineau from ST Racing Esports Competition. Then it's Nate Stewart and Austin Farr in row number 9. Matt Friedman and Giovanni Romano in the HJ Motorsport car starts in 20th.
21st going to 15, Alex Comfort alongside the 26th. That is David Henderson. Miguel Colon, 21 car in 23rd. Ben Osting, we kept an eye on him, 24th. Dakota Fripp will be in the 9 alongside the 19. That's Cameron Jordan will be starting 26th. Joshua Soto, 27th and 10. Christian Menzies in 28th. Ryan Doucette, 77 alongside Adam Brickley, the top 30.
And Wan Shi Lin starts 31st alongside Andrew Sharp in the number 48. Weston Workman running the Real Series with us this year, starts 33rd. Chris Wetson, 34th. Mauricio Lozano, Keelan Terry, Blake Townend, 35th through 37th. And Justin Nasir, Nicholas Sudik, Aiden Yoder, Nicholas Rice-Budo, Max Hewitt, and John Jesbray round out your field. It's time to go racing in the Toyota GR Cup North America Esports League. 7 rounds of racing begin now here in Sonoma, California, and you're along for the ride. 60-minute race. Here we go. Green flag flies, and Vicente Salas takes us to the green. Already trouble in the middle of the field. They're banging doors already, and they're going to try to get it straightened out. But one of the HJ Motorsport cars, it's Romano. He's already off course, and everybody's just packed up together as they head up to turn 2.
That's exactly the worst nightmare that you can have for the start to the season. Sam Adams ended up getting bundled up because of a lot of that contact midfield. And this is exactly what can be off-putting to start off the year. Sam Adams, significant damage. Many more have problems. Logan McKenzie having to pull off and tow because of his damage already. Yeah, that's a disastrous way to start. Again, it's a tight racetrack on the opening lap because the walls on either side. And the other HJ car, that's Romano again. He's gone off a second time now, and there's big damage to the nose of that car. We'll check in on that a little while longer. But up front, Lampy's taking the lead away from Salas. What an aggressive start, to say the least, though, in the heart of the pack here. Quite simply, you mentioned one of the main sending opportunities. Looks like that's coming to play before the carousel for turn 4. Chance for Vicente to be able to get a send back here, but he does have some friends. Andre Castro right behind. He has that ERA logo all over that race car in the backdrop. That's a series that Vicente's won twice for $2,000 apiece. Into the S's now for the first time, streaming through in these GR Cup cars. Speeds climbing into the triple digits, and the first time down to the major passing opportunity at turn number 11. Lampy stole the lead away from Salas in the first sector, and, well, he's trying to set sail as one car goes for a slide. That's Belleman off in the dirt at turn 10. That's one of the common areas we talked about that in qualifying. If drivers are struggling, they'll end up going very wide there, and it checks everything up because you have to lift off that gas. Bellman giving some good intensity, though, to wrap that inside. That is a tight window to fit it, though. And Micah Hendricks in that 73 going to slot between his teammate Landry and Belleman on the run up to turn 2. You kind of have to get single file here because the second turn at the top of this hill is pretty off camber. It's hard to keep momentum there. Max Hewitt has hit pit lane. Logan McKenzie is out, and John Jesbray is out. Romano and Sam Adams on pit lane. So a disastrous first lap for about 5 drivers. And we'll see if they can get back on course, but not looking good for those drivers. Yeah, if you're that far back, you're basically hoping to be able to pick off drivers and hope there's more attrition. Speaking of some of those, the HJ Motorsports machines getting shuffled a little bit. Comfort in all of this, just trying to hold on to spots. Currently losing a lot of ground here because everybody wants to get by and recover, like Menzies and many more. And this is where a lot of bottlenecks happen. Drivers just saying, I want to go. I want to make the pass. You can't get every spot at the same time. You certainly can't.
Door open there for Menzies, sees the opportunity, late braking there. Crawford tried to cover, but it was too late. The 21 of Miguel Colon goes for a big slide there at 7. You see how much momentum that kills. Traction control is off on this fixed setup, by the way, Justin, so that's not there to save you. You have to do all that with your right foot.
Some people actually argue that can make you a little bit slower at times. Yes, it's good for stability, but it's something at the top levels that the first thing that's done, turn off the traction control to be able to get that extra feel, because a lot of drivers do like the feel of the grip. But speaking of grip, how about some pumping and painting for the race lead? Here comes Andre Castro.
Yeah, Salas wanted it back, got to the inside of Lampe and gave him a shot, and here comes Castro with the opportunistic drive around the outside of turn 12, and he'll take the lead away from Salas. So Salas wanted it, got it, and then got it taken right back. Here he looks up the inside of turn 2.
Yeah, these two at this point continuing the fight, but Lampe, oh, how about 3 wide?
Let's do it. 3 wide to turn 3. You can't do that at Sonoma. Lampe gets shuffled off to the right, and look out Andre Castro, because he was running out of racing room on the left side of the road there. Now Salas takes it back. He is on a mission, and the dorsal fin, well, we're not too far from the ocean. It's swimming right here at Sonoma already.
Yeah, what an exciting moment, and what an exciting race early on, because the reason I say that is, well, first, you have a New York State driver up front. It's basically setting the vibes of clean racing from NYC for the lead, but how about 3 wide? How about all started though? Remember that trouble spot for turn 10? You end up having to slow up, avoid the sand. That opened up the door for Salas, but Salas just missed the apex of the corner and opens the door wide for the 2021 Team USA Scholarship winner.
And then they come all the way through turn 2 here. And at the exit of turn 2, here comes Lampe again, looking to the right. And they might have thought they were going to clear Castro, but they certainly did not. There's a little shuffle again. And I'm sure Lampe is counting the number of strikes he's had against Vincent Salas. But it's early in this race to be this aggressive, but already showing what the playing field's going to look like today.
Well, Vicente's kind of built a brand on aggression at times, but put it simply, if he wants to win, he will aggressively defend it. He will aggressively then fight you back the second he loses the lead. We've seen that in NASCAR. For others like Paul Darling, he's kind of the opposite based on what I've seen from satellite racing. He will keep it calm, let the race come to him. Just say, if you're faster, you go right on ahead. I'll catch up later.
Paul Darling is just that. I mean, I know him very well in the real world, and he's so funny because, you know, there was one time he was racing in a grassroots series and forgot the key to his race car. And instead of asking for help, he was going to drive all the way home to Michigan from Watkins Glen to do that. And everyone banded up together and said, no, we'll figure out how to hotwire this thing for you. But Paul he's just such a great human. But, you know, you put the racer gloves on, and while he's aggressive and he can make passes, he also has a calmness about him. You can see it there, just how relaxed he is behind the wheel, and that might pay dividends in a series where everything's so high octane.
And that's the reason when, on the virtual side too, he's one of the first names that comes out of a lot of people's minds from satellite racing because of the respect. And people can tell when you have that energy from you. As in, people want to work with people who are fun, but also are nice to be able to work with. And for Darling, he's nice to work with, but also has nice pace in him.
We're working through the S's now, back in 8th place for Paul Darling, jumping back a bit deeper in the field here. There were some other battles formulating. Josh Soto here in the number 10, following Miguel Colon in the number 21. Adam Brickley's behind him, and then Christian Miniz in the number 25. There he is in that red and white car, and Wan Shi Lin in the 30 just behind.
A solid pace, just 10 seconds behind the leader this early of the going for the race here, but someone like Lin, he races a ton of cars. I've seen him in stock cars, open wheel cars, GR86s, just about everything you can put on the platform, he races in it, and at the very least qualifies. So he's got great hot lap pace for 5-Star Motorsport to make these races. It's just then winning the races, that's the hardest part, obviously.
Well, yeah, certainly winning is going to be up a little bit more challenging. But, you know, it's interesting you mentioned all of his experience in different cars here in iRacing, because we see this in the real GR Cup Series as well. Drivers coming over from NASCAR, especially from the Toyota camp, to give these cars a try and also enhance their road racing experience, because all the things that you learn in a 230 horsepower sports car are going to translate. Yes, they will. I promise. They will translate to your big, heavy stock car on a road course because it's all about carrying momentum. And if anybody ever told you that big, heavy cars are momentum cars, they are lying to you. But the way you learn that is by driving a lightweight, well-balanced car like a GR Cup car. And that's why they're all gravitating towards this series. And it's been a pleasure to watch them. But just fascinating to see how many different disciplines of drivers you find in this championship.
Still been keeping an eye on what's going on up front, though, I will say, Kyle. These three at this point just continuing to play back and forth. Just waiting for someone to slip up here. Again, Castro, he's run a lot more in the sim the past year, especially I've noticed. Especially in the stock car. Again, to that reference. Especially in, say, the truck. He's somebody that I'm not going to be surprised to see him be a contender in each of these races because of that real-world experience in open wheels, but also being known as a road course ace in real-world NASCAR.
Yeah, certainly that will assist you. He's got Vincent Salas checking his rearview mirror here on the front straightaway. We're only 9 minutes in, and they've already been added up front, but everything calmed down for a few laps, and Castro's looking up the inside here at turn 2. Opportunity isn't really there just yet, but just setting up Vincent Salas, and I think he might have a bit of assistance from Ethan Lampe behind him. I think Ethan's willing to sit back here and let Andre do the hard work of opening the door, and Lampe will drive right through it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the mindset here. It's too early to massively push and try and run away, and seen that a lot in some of the high competitions on iRacing as of late. Drivers will just wait, and once it's time to go, then they'll go. That gets back to the tire saving management conversation from qualifying earlier on. You don't want to end up cooking the tires and then you're not able to keep up. Now, for Christopher Severt and company, in theory, the hope is quite simple. Maybe, just maybe, I can close that 5-car length gap and join this conversation too.
I think they will close the gap if and when those front three begin to battle, right? As long as they're running single file, they're going to be able to put in the best laps of their day. And I can tell you that because Vincent Salas just ran his best lap of the day just last time around. So that gives you a pretty good idea that as long as everyone's single file, they can just click off laps like it's testing. The second you get side by side, that math changes quite a bit.
The calculation in terms of that planning also comes down to there's always so far back you can try and win the race from, per se, in the lead group. We've seen a lot of drivers come from 10, 20 spots. It can be difficult, but some of those drivers in the real world, they're getting a little bit dicey.
Hayden Yoder sending it down the inside of Nicholas Rice-Budo. That was fun. I think Nicholas is actually running in the series this year as well. I haven't seen that confirmed just yet, but I believe he is, and Hayden Yoder will be. Hayden was a spectacular driver to watch, especially at Circuit of the Americas last season. It was my first event at the series, and he put on a show, especially when the track got wet and we started sliding around quite a bit. So keep our eye on Hayden. I think he intends to run the majority of this season, so we'll definitely get to watch him put his wet weather skills to the test.
He is getting the opportunity to work with one of several spotters from the sim. Noel Valero on his box. Several drivers took that opportunity at least, and at the least, there has to be that communication line there of, okay, car in front's doing X, how to be able to keep the driver calm. I want to go to the Rice-Budo point, though, because it's interesting about the rise of him in the real world, too, is he built his name, too, virtual to reality. He's been one of the top drivers in Miata racing for at least 4 or 5 years, and that's his specialty in the real world.
Yeah, and certainly the transition from those cars to these probably isn't going to be a totally different discipline to have to learn. It's still a front engine rear drive car. I think the GR Cup car is going to be gripped up a little bit more. It's got some aero on it, which is going to help as well. They're a little bit more slippery in a straight line and generally just a bit faster in this trim as well. So it's going to be a step up in some ways, but I can't wait to see him after it. Here's Kevin Roll on the attack on Polasek in the 45, almost a touch there to the bumper in the hairpin.
Polasek, I'm still surprised he's this far back in the grouping because anything that's touring car, that Obsidian Racing machine is guaranteed a top 2. I mean, almost guaranteed. Nothing's fully guaranteed, but when you've got someone who basically rose to the ranks of through the club league scene, and has found so much pace that he's been outright able to dominate at least 3 different leagues. That says a lot. He was originally a race control admin from the club scene, in fact, for a couple of years around the end of the 2010s.
Now, do you think that gives you an advantage knowing all the ins and outs of race control and how they make their decisions? We've got live race control today. Is that any kind of advantage to know how they're thinking up there in the box?
I mean, you only think in so many ways in the car itself, but out of the car, absolutely. It helps you be able to find the nuances of the rule book, be able to find anything with a fine-tooth comb, or at the very least, know how others will race against each other in those situations. It's kind of the putting your feet in those type of shoes to be able to learn that, compared to those who just assume it's apples to apples.
Adam Brickley in the 51, Miguel Colon in the 21. That's for 20th place. This battle is happening here. Back here, Ryan Doucette in the number 77 has joined us as well. We documented him in qualifying, a current eNASCAR driver. And he's 26th on the board at the moment, right behind this great battle for position, just outside that top 20 position.
This season, Doucette, for reference, running with Pittsburgh Knights, which is a organization in the esports world based, of course, out of Pittsburgh, but of course also a rear-wheel modified racer, runs a lot of the Northeast. So gonna be very happy to have to think when by the time we get to the latter half of the season.
12,
oh my.
Turn 11 rather, and there's 2 cars around, Nasir, and I think that is Blake Townend as well. They've come together at the hairpin, and this is our trouble spot, Justin, but we hadn't seen it come to a head just yet. There was contact from the 24 car.
Yeah, Justin Nazir, one of those for Dead Zone Racing, works in the box in the Coke Series. Quite simply, I think he was trying to make the pass, obviously, on the 8, but he was not expecting Townsend to make the diamond line and be there at the top of the send. Just bad circumstance.
I would say so. So they will tangle, and they'll drop down the order there, and I'm sure Race Control will take a look at that. And as far as penalties, we will show you if there are any. So far, no further action on any incidents on the opening couple of laps.
Yeah, that's one of her first main contacts outside the first lap, I will say, but it's been mostly clean.
Oh,
Has to be expected.
Don't say that. We'll get it at some point, right? I mean, towards the end of the race, I'm sure.
You're acting like the commentator's curse is going to strike all of a sudden.
Does it ever not strike, Justin?
I mean, it does strike within 5 seconds of it being said 9 times out of 10. We didn't have a spin right now, so we're in the 10th. Okay,
fair point. Here's Kevin Rold and Nate Stewart battling for 11th spot. And 10th place is Polasek just ahead of them. And then leading this little train is Paul Darling. They've dropped about 1.6 seconds off of Jason Landry, who himself is tacked right under the tailgate of his teammate Micah Hendricks up in 6th.
Yeah, this is the teamwork I talked about, the opportunity to have when it comes to these two. We talked about the organization a bit, but Jason Landry was one of the top drivers from the Hot Lap Challenge and for the time trials and time attacks. In fact, top 5 to be able to qualify his way through, and I jinxed it.
I told you. There's Austin Farr off at turn 2. Let's see how he found his way back here. This was alongside 50, well, he was alongside the 91?
Yeah.
Elliot Budzinski.
Yeah, that was definitely not clear there, but that was a tight window. Farr obviously didn't want to lift off from the left side. He expected Budzinski to lift, except Budzinski was just trying to get a squeeze out for the arc for the corner. And a tough break for one of the drivers with experience in eNASCAR College Series from Leadpaw Racing.
Yeah, looking again, he kind of got squeezed left by the 91. I'm not really sure if he was trying to tuck in behind or what, but he was on the curbing there on the left and just gets hooked around. So that's going to hurt Austin Farr. He'll drop down to 28th spot now.
Yeah, that's kind of called in that sequence. I want you to lift and let me go, and you're not letting me go, so have fun.
Car 24, that's Justin Nasir in the 38th spot. Avoidable contact warning for the issue down there at the hairpin last time around.
No major penalty, but Could have been much worse. I think some people are starting to trade paint, though. Remember what I talked about with Martineau? If he keeps it clean, he does well. He is right now in bumper car mode because Matt Freeman and Pete Hutchinson have been starting to trade paint. This is only for 14th.
And it's getting fierce here up the hill into turn 2. If you're side by side here, someone can get shuffled off. They're going to trade spots there. The 2 of Freeman moves ahead of Hutchinson, but all behind Martineau. And you see Ali Budzinski's got some damage on the nose of his car, I think, from that contact last time around. But it is fierce back here. And the points pay out quite a ways down, down to 8th place. So if you can get up inside that top 10, contact and spin. And that's Cologne, no, that's Dakota Fripp who's gone around for a slide.
Yeah, that is not going to be a friendly time. That's in this same grouping just about yet again. Quite simply, turn 4, see the opportunity, trying to send it. Door closed on top of him. Just the diamond from the outside that obviously not expected there for the back grouping from Cologne and Company.
Yeah, certainly not. So they're going to tangle up together. I think he mostly kept it straight after that, though, so didn't lose a whole lot of positions. And this is just a traffic jam with Cologne in the middle of it. Dakota Fripp, Cam Jordan is in this, Chris Wetz, and more.
Yeah, and oh, that was a bit of an aggressive move back across the nose of Fripp. But that's something that Cologne kind of needed to do. Side by side, and the S's is even worse for him.
Yeah, don't want to lose any more spots. 25 right behind, and this is your opportunity through turn 10, and you hear him have to lift in the wake of the cars ahead of him here. They've got some great aerodynamics on these cars, but it's still not a ton of them, so you can't totally lean on that wing in its entirety. Although the wing is set up pretty aggressively. Little bit of shuffling back here. Chris Wetz in the 71 and Weston Workman coming together out of turn 12.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can't really damage the race car because at least on the iRacing side, it can be pretty sensitive after a certain point to the front nose, can hurt you a bit on the aerodynamic side, albeit not as much maybe at Sonoma, but every bit counts. Especially, say, if you put it to the chassis, to the front wheels, that hurts a lot of the turn-in and drive-through, and be able to drive in. You lose that control, it loses speed.
Checking back in with your leaders. Nothing's changed up here, but they have dispatched Savert in the 39. It's the top 3 separated by 1.2 seconds over 4th, 5th, and 6th. And behind that, it's just little groups of cars here and there. But these front 3, I'm sure they'd be happy just to race amongst themselves, Justin, and not have to contend with anybody else behind that.
That's kind of the goal. Quite simply, these 3, with how they're co-opetitioning, they're trying to make sure they run away. If they go back and forth, everyone else joins the fun. So why not make the numbers game a little bit more simpler? This is a smart play, in theory, if you're these 3, to know, just ride, and then you don't risk losing the top 3 if you're fighting later.
Yeah, click off laps and be ready at the end. Here's Nate Stewart on Kevin Roll down here for 11th. And that's a textbook maneuver, but can he get the power down in time to clear him? I think they're going to do a little drag race up the front straightaway here.
There had been touches of contact between the 2 of them already the past lap. Nate Stewart had apologized to the radio. Look at that. Race control, a drive-through penalty for the 91 all of a sudden.
Yeah, that was for contact up at turn number 2, so he'll have to serve a drive-through. And Rold and Stewart still going after it here. They are not done contending just yet. Side by side through 3, that's not going to work. I cannot believe they didn't come together there. Big curb jump for Stewart, and they're still door-to-door.
I think pretty certain Kevin Roll just has to say, you know what, go ahead. If you think you're quicker, go pass. Just getting a little bit dicey with the bits of contact already between them the past lap. And already seeing Nate Stewart trying to run up that road, though. There's that diciness yet again starting to build up amongst some of these drivers. So at the run, this time they want to switch the lead car in Group 2.
Yeah, this is Thomas Belleman past the 39 up into 4th place now. If this locomotive isn't pulling the train quick enough, you've got to switch engines before you run out of time to run those leaders back down. And I think we might see the leaders get a little bit more comfortable with battling each other if they see those others behind them are battling as well. As long as they're fighting, you're safe to fight. But if they're not and you begin to fight, well, you're not going to have that lead for very long.
Exactly. And just ride along, wait patiently. If anything, Lampy is the one slipping up out of the three of them, starting to lose a little bit of ground here and there. Just not as close compared to what we're seeing Salas and Castro. But now this is where I'm curious. Bellman. He's been so quiet this entire session. He qualified top 5, mind you. In final practice, he was in the top 5 as well. He might be the one to be able to keep up as here comes penalty time.
Yeah, that's for Elliot Budzinski serving the penalty, the first of the penalties we've had today. And this is a long, slow pit lane. This is going to hurt.
Yeah, this is going to basically take him out of contention for at least the top 20. You'd have to think with how much time's left on the clock here. But there are still some good battles. Speaking of that battle around top 20s, that's near contact with Cologne.
That was very tight there between Soto and Cologne. And Weston Workman has driven his way up through the field. He started near the rear, and he has clawed his way up to 23rd spot. He's going to have a look here at the 25 into turn 4. Late on the brakes, maybe too late. No, somehow he slowed it down. That was impressive.
Oh, and he's pretty much getting these elbows out. You mentioned the rear-world experience from him. He's a lot more comfortable, it looks like, compared to some on that brake pedal with how deep he can send it. He might be one of our best crossovers from that mark on the wildcard spots with how he's been able to pace himself. He might be in the top half, if not the top 10.
Yeah, I see a little bit of juking and jiving happening back here between Cam and Jordan. See if he can get underneath the 25 here at turn 7, and he will not. But yeah, you're right about that. I mean, Workman really good on the brakes, trusting that Bosch ABS system to slow the car down. That's one of the things that is upgraded on this car when you turned into a race car for the series, is you dispatch all of the stock electronics for Bosch systems, traction control and ABS. Although we've got the TC disabled, ABS is still on. So smash that pedal to the floor, you will stop the car.
And the wild thing is, when talking about Workman, is he's just 18. He's already been winning in the other divisions, in Toyota cars, in the Miatas, especially as of late as well. He's been looking strong. And this is all while basically getting ready for class with UNC Charlotte.
Homework after the race. How common is that these days? It seems like it's getting more and more common, but we'll keep our eye on Workman as he is about to climb into the top 20, and this is the group that he will have to pass to do that. Wan Shi Lin in 19th. That's that blue and orange car center shot here. Chasing Adam Brickley and Dakota Fripp, who's on a bit of a recovery after that slide a couple of laps ago right here at turn 4.
Yeah, I think some of these drivers, you can tell with, especially for Lin, he wants to go, but the problem is this is not a passing section. He's quicker than Adam Brickley. Brickley struggling on corner exit, especially in sector 2 here. Lin's much more better on slow in, fast out. Won't be surprised if Lin, the second he sees a chance, dive bombs it.
And Joshua Soto's not quite close enough to give him a shove, but we're riding on board Soto now, chasing Lin, and for now stays line astern into the braking zone. Maybe setting up for a better opportunity at turn 11. This is one of the tracks that I think is easier from a racecraft perspective, and I don't say that because it's easier to pass. It is absolutely not easier to pass than tracks we're going to see later. But I think for the most part, you know where you're going to try to do it. It's at turn 7 or turn 11. Other places you can force it, but it's not going to come naturally. There's other racetracks on the calendar where you can pass it in 12 or 15 different corners, and it makes the racing a little bit more unpredictable. So that's an extra challenge to add when we head to, especially Sebring next month. Here's Kevin Roldan. That's Nate Stewart once again. This battle has just been persistent.
You know the saying of even footing pace, you see them race together usually in these small packs. These two are just about tied at the hip at this rate. And it can get a little bit maybe frustrating for some, but for others it can be absolutely a blast. These two are becoming good friends with how this is going, you'd say.
Yeah. You know, there's a lot of times that you'll be frustrated in the moment, and then as soon as you finish the race, you go, man, that was fun. I want to do that again. And I think this might be one of those scenarios. I'm sure they'd like to be a little further up the order, but I think post-race they're going to enjoy a good chat after this. Nate Stewart in that dead zone racing car as he claws down the hill into the carousel. No changes up front. Those front three are still 1, 2, 3, but Thomas Belleman is just a hair closer than he was a couple of laps ago, Justin.
10th of a second quicker last time, in fact. Been keeping the average close in hand. He is running in the same ballpark as the leaders. the only other driver in the 144.5s on average the past 5 laps that is not in this grouping up front, Micah Hendricks and Matt Adams. And those drivers are at the back end of the second group. That's a rapid pace, first of all, but second, a good sign, especially for Bellman in clean space, that he's this much quicker. And I think there's a chance this is going to be a 4-car break pretty quickly, with the others being a 10th off right now with the wear.
On board again with Weston Workman as he continues his charge. And Christian Minis is just ahead of him in the 25, and watching dropping a Continental in the dirt there. See if Workman pops out to the right. No, he's going to stay patient and in line. Ahead of him, though, Adam Brickley and Wan Shi Lin are side by side.
There's that set I was talking about. Expected that, to try to tempt that. Not able to get that to work, though. I was about to say, Brickley, along with the other driver you're just looking at with the 25, just 15 years old for each of those drivers. Our youngest competitors doing very solid, have a chance for at least solid points payouts, possibly if they can keep going. Or they can have technical issues in front. That's not going to help.
To say Dakota Fripp having some issues here, and you don't have any kind of parts failures or anything breaking necessarily. That's not driver input here in the iRacing world, but you can have things like that, internet connectivity or other issues that can take you out of an eSports title. And Fripp looks like it's stabilized for now, but it's something to keep an eye on through the rest of this race. We are closing in at halfway, Justin. 30 minutes to go in 55 seconds, and I tell you, Bellman has closed in even more. Another 2/10 off that last time by.
Consider him part of that group now. He's within a second of the bumper of the 95, so now they have that good 1 second differential. Now, with this all to think about, points are going to be important to think about for the title as well. The top 15 and the pole sitter score points in this series, remember, Kyle. With Javid Hutchinson right now on that cut for points. The intensity needs to pick up for those towards 16th on back, obviously, but also intensity expects to pick up with everyone seeing, oh, we're losing Bellman. It's Langer, it's Severt's problem. We need to pass him.
Yeah, and he's going to lose a spot here to Micah Hendricks. Micah's on the outside for turn 1, but usually you want drivers right here because turn 2 is a lot longer and a lot slower, so you're going to use all your mechanical grip. Severt's going to try to drive up the outside, but he's running out of racetrack. He's going to drop the tires, and here comes Jason Landry and Paul Darling, and this is like the shark smelling blood in the water here because, they're going to tangle!
Oh! And that you could see coming with the intensity. Severt not going to be happy. Just try to keep it side by side, but again, see on the replay, Landry trying to squeeze for the first portion of the left-right, and that just sets things up. Severt needs to go right. He needs to cut back to be able to make the corner.
Yeah, at some point you've got to turn in, right? And let's see, again from high above. Yeah, it just kind of got crowded there a little bit. I don't think that was supposed to happen. I don't think any of the drivers planned that, obviously, but it just stinks for the 39. He's going to drop down to 10th place. And whoa, a little bit of shaking and shuffling up front. Matt Adams on the attack on Jason Landry.
Now it's his time. With everybody else saying, let's go bumper cars, I'm not surprised Matt's saying, you know what, I'm going to get away from this before it gets even more tricky. Matt Adams amongst one of the top runners in the league scene with one of his former drivers, Blake Reynolds, we were talking about before tonight's action. And he's one of those known for having a level-headed mindset in these types of fights. Others like Polasek, he's one of those that is very well-minded in general, who now has a chance to pick up points. Maybe he can finally make a pass from 10th.
And look at the intensity on his face. He has got it going right now, chasing Paul Darling down. He ran way out wide at turn 7 to try to set up for a run down to turn 11. Not close enough to make a pass this time, but we will absolutely keep our eyes on Polasek there. They have lost tons of ground, though, to Micah Hendricks, who just lit the afterburners when that little fiasco happened last time around. But Bellman has closed the gap, and there's a bit. Look at this battle down here at 11. Holy cow.
Yeah, this is what Workman's going to have to be able to work his way through. You mentioned Hornet's Nest. Well, this is about 5 of them gathered up here in wine country.
And someone just kicked it.
Yeah, and if somebody ends up poking it with a stick as well, that could be massive. Oh, that is a 7.5 by Jordan.
Man, Cam Jordan trying to move up the inside. He's got Ryan Doucette to his outside and a big line of cars ahead of him. They're going to try door-to-door here through turn 4. This didn't go well the last time we saw it. This group, I think, is going to go through here a little bit cleaner, and they have.
Yeah, And Chris Wetzel surrounded up, and there we go. There's the squish. And whoa, that's not going to be good for Doucette. That's a crash.
And he's in the wall. And it looks like, oh, that's big damage on this 77.
Yeah, as soon as that contact was made, I think that's what just started to disable or disorientate Doucette's exit. Tries to correct it with too much suspension wobble and hop back into the wall, and Doucette has massive damage. He'll have to come in and fix the tie rod.
Yeah, that is going to be a timely, costly fix in the pit lane area. So that group is going to still continue to do battle. It is not going to be over anytime soon. We still have 26 minutes of racing to go. And it's like some investigation, no further action between car 39 and 5. They've got their differences at least sorted by race control.
You can see the argument of it being a racing incident in that idea. 50-50. This is not 50-50. That is straight to the tire barrier. Wow.
Dakota Fripp hard in the wall, and he's tangled with Cologne as well. And that is going to be an almost instant retirement here. And that was a big one.
Yeah, that was not going to work. These tire barriers in iRacing do not move.
No, they don't. And if you didn't know that, now you do, because that is about as fast as you can come to a stop around here at Sonoma. Gets to the inside of, is that Soto there?
That was Lynn, I think. Regardless, Soto definitely got something, or he was going to think about Soto. It was Soto. Yeah. He took Lynn with him.
Weston Workman bails to the outside of the JBL car. That was an ugly mess there. But we'll continue up front, and for second, Andre Castro forcing his way by Lampe through turn 7, got it in a power slide at exit, and now is going to set the sails for Vincente Salas at the front of the field. 25 minutes to go.
Yeah, Vicente allowing this opportunity to run away, though. You can't spend too far and too much time to do this. Oh, look, a race control.
It's getting busier down there, I think. And that is car 33, Nicholas Rice-Spudo, for avoidable contact, lap 18. That was 2 laps ago at turn 8. So that was the issue that we were, actually I don't think we caught that one, so that was in the S's somewhere.
Yeah, curious on the backstory to that for Rice-Spudo, but back to the backstory of what's going on up front here. This true test now again for Castro and company has to close. For others like Landry, Matt Adams pretty much saying, I've had enough, it's time to go ka-choo to my outside.
Yeah, I guess your best defense is a good offense right about now, isn't it? If you're Adams or Landry, or how about Paul Darling in this mix, right in the thick of it as they climb the hill. Big curb jump and crossover from Darling. That was excellent, but not enough overlap to go by Landry at turn 4.
Remember how I talked about Darling would just get the spots later?
Yeah.
It's later.
Yeah, I think it's later. I think you're right. I mean, he has been 8th most of this race, but he's about to not be.
Yeah, right now, I think drivers like Landry have cooked the tires on some of these massive sends. And it's pretty much showing with how much speed lost. Others like Polasek are just absolutely just right dirt the backdrop. Then you have just the middle and all that. And Darling saying, I'm still calm. I'm not in the grass. I'm not in the sand. I don't have cars running towards me. I don't have a burnt right front tire.
Not yet. 23 minutes to go. We're down to basically the final third of this race. A little bit of scrums back here for 17th. Josh Soto, Adam Brickley, and a few others engaging a little bit of 1v1 back here. And then Hutchinson and Cofford, this is for 15th and the final points paying spot, Justin. This is going to be fiercely fought over.
This is going to be intense for the fight because Cofford needs to find a way around by it if he wants to at least get 1 point. Start the championship in decent footing. He's got a lot of time, though. That's my counter argument. 23 minutes. That sounds like not a lot in some cases with the laps, but that's almost an eternity. That is basically a TV show.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on your perspective, right? If you're the one chasing a driver, this next 23 minutes is going to be the shortest time you've ever experienced. If you're the guy trying to hold them off, it's going to feel like it's taken forever for this race to finish. And it's all just a matter of perspective. But Cofford just 1 spot behind a points-paying position. And just to get on the board has got to feel good in a field like this. So I'm sure he's going to do everything he can to get by Hutchinson in the next 22 minutes or about 13 laps.
Especially in the full context for the title fight. I think, though, looking at the average pace, they're near dead even on raw speed. This might be one of those battles where as soon as Hutchinson has a slip up, Goffard needs to go, because that might be the chance he gets.
Speaking of chances, what's happening up here, and are they running out of chances to keep Salas in check? He's 1.2 clear of the field. Is this down to managing those Continentals, Justin? Because he has just set sail and just ran his best lap of the race. It didn't count because he went off track, but still a 1:44.226 is a lot quicker than everybody else has just run.
I think that's less of serving Continentals right now. It's more so Castro may have burned up some of his trying to match up with the pace. Now that they had another back and forth, that's an error, couple percent of tire wear for the sim that you have to factor in there possibly. And I think for Castro, those tires are starting to show a little bit of struggle. He was quicker by 0.2 this time, but others behind him are going to see the pattern in the past 5 and say, I've got to go as soon as it opens.
Matt Adams and Landry, they're side by side, and Landry's going to end up almost in the dirt as Paul Darling looks to pick up the pieces of whatever's left after these guys start throwing dirt at each other here. Through turn 3, through turn 4, that's going to be very tight. Does Darling take him 3 across? No.
Yeah, that's not a smart point to go 3 right there, and that's not a smart point to squeeze like it's an oval track. That is not a smart play at all with Adams. That costs him all the spots.
Yeah, and Paul Darling will just, like I said, pick up the pieces and he'll move through. And through goes Polasek and Severt as well. Those drivers tangled at the exit of 4. Here's another look at it from a different angle. Let's see what happens here.
Have you ever heard of the late arc? Adams tried to late arc him into the sand to force him to lift. That doesn't work unless you're in a stock car on the platform or you're racing against AI. People do not like to lift here.
Look at this. Wow, look at Friedman off course there a little bit at the exit of 7, trying to keep the momentum in it, and Kevin Rolds alongside him, and we're going to do side-by-side through the S's. That's a tough place to do it, and Martineau watching from behind. He wants through.
Martineau doing well despite that left front damage, though. Just has to find the right smart place. That was not a smart place if he committed to it. We've seen him in all those levels of competition. He knows when to pick a spot to be able to try and move. He races at the different platforms we mentioned, but he also races just about everything from virtual GTs to go-karts in real life.
They have sorted it out single file for now. Back to Adams because he's trying to get back by the 39 spin. Nate Stewart.
And that's not a pretty send around. Both of them send each other around.
Oh.
That was just a checkup effect off the back of Adams.
Yeah, oh, look out. The rest of the field's coming through. Hi, Cofford. Hi, Hutchinson. That's for points-paying positions, and they'll take him. Landry's now out of points-paying positions and just checking up behind Adams, and they just kind of ran in nose to tail, and the 5 got looped around at the end.
Accordion effect, quite simply. And they show a little bit of love as they try and get back going, too. Why not? But Nate Stewart is now the last in the points.
And
they're not going to be happy. Yeah, and Landry behind. But you know who's right behind them somehow, too, in all this? Correct me if I'm wrong. Yes, that is Ryan Doucette damage behind him.
Oh, yeah, Doucette's back on track. He's only a lap down.
Oh, I was going to say, pardon me, apologies there. Cofford is now amongst those in the battle. Austin Farr needs to catch.
Yeah, this is going to really be interesting. This last little battle here for this 15th and 16th spot. Cofford, Stewart, Landry, and then there's the 77 who's a lap down just behind. But up front, no one's chasing down Salas at the front of the field with 18 minutes left on the board. Castro, Lampe, and Belleman are still left to decide second place. I'm not going to call it done yet, Justin, but they have to start making inroads at some point if they want to have a shot.
I think they need to start making inroads right about now, because if you gain a 10th of the lap, you get yourself maybe 2-3 chances, if not 5, on Vicente. If you keep up the pattern right now, apologies there, but you're going to end up not catching at the rate needed. They're only gaining a couple hundredths, then losing a tenth. Couple hundredths gain, lose a tenth again. At some point, Lampy might have to say, I gotta go. Others are starting to say, I've gotta go, like I'm Jeff Gordon, like the 48.
Yeah, that is Andrew Sharp behind the wheel. And we haven't really talked a ton about Andrew yet today, but just having a solid 25th place run. I think he'd like a little, 26th place. He'd like a little bit more pace, I'm sure, but the skill level of this series is incredibly high, and I think your qualifying position is going to have a huge impact on where you finish, at least in this first couple of rounds. And Sonoma is one of the more challenging racetracks to make up positions, Justin, so I would look forward to seeing Andrew really focus on qualifying at Sebring and beyond, and I think he's got the pace to be up in the top 15 or so.
I agree with you because I've seen the pace you're talking about. In series that run weekly, he's one of the top prospects. In fact, he's already been a champion a couple times over in the respective ladder. But he also has expanded his repertoire to also join the stock car ranks recently, because any track like Sonoma, Will Springs, when the official series went there during the winter time for the trucks, he was a contender with barely experience in that. Ovals, still a long way to go. Have you ever tried a two-stop at Chicagoland in a one-stop race?
Well, no, but I can imagine it'd be a lot of fun to give it a shot if you had nothing else to lose. But he's got Miguel Colon right behind him, and then Ben Blaustein in the 41. Great-looking paint on this car, nice and shiny on that 41 machine. P28 right now. And as far as retirements, just to update you, Rice-Puto, Fripp, Adams, Romano, Jesbray, McKenzie, and Hewitt are out. 36 drivers remain on the racetrack. 33 of those are on the lead lap. So attrition not so bad considering this is one of the tighter tracks we're at in the first round.
Yeah, it's been mostly clean. Outside of those, honestly, most of the attrition, I will say, has been from the start of the race in the first lap. That's expected. But mostly everybody else has respected each other to a point. We've seen some dive bombs and a halves today, but they respect each other to know when they need to be racing respectfully to get points.
And this is something that I think the Real World Series as well, in Toyota GR Cup North America, they have done an exceptional job with, is the expectation of fair, clean racing. Because it's not always true that that one make series have super clean, fair racing all the time. And last year, it was just an amazing display of mutual respect on and off the racetrack, and I expect that to continue this season. But they set a great precedent for the eSports Series, and the drivers that are here participating that are from the Real World Series have also shown us a great deal of respect, which is fantastic to see. Brickley Soto and Cam Jordan together here for 17th place.
Yeah, these drivers mostly battling for the respect in the position. Obviously, with how far back they are to the points right now, they need about 10 seconds. But all it takes is more bad luck for some drivers up front. They're right in the conversation to get those points right back. Brickley still playing great defensive. That is a little bit too fast, maybe. I'm surprised he didn't send it wide.
I am too. Those Continental tires working overtime to keep the car on the road. And here comes Cam Jordan to the inside of Soto, and he'll take that spot. Jordan Rick Segreini's back there as well. And here's Weston Workman. His progress has slowed down, but I'm still very impressed with his drive today. From the tail of the field up to 22nd place, he's clawed through half the field and has half to go.
I think part of that getting that pace fall down is, well, first of all, he just set his fastest lap of the race in traffic. I think, honestly, if he was a clean space, he probably, or at better, had a stronger qualifying performance, he'd be in the top 10 right now. But it's just simply, there's so many cars you can pass at one time.
And he's picking them off one by one now and just being very methodical about it. And so I'm sure he'll have an opportunity to climb up into the top 20 because there's only 2 more cars he has to do to get there. And with Soto and Jordan and Brickley still fighting pretty hard for 17th, I think he could get as far as here. Then it's another 2 seconds up to Austin Farr. That might be a little bit of a stretch, but not impossible, I suppose.
It's not fully impossible, but it will take getting the passes done very tactically and very quickly. The problem is going to be right now, each of these drivers are almost getting a toe off of each other, and it's almost to where it's a whole snake train of cars lined up it's going to take a bit of a dive. And right now, Workman just isn't close enough to even get a clean dive.
Not close enough, but he's also got another real World Series competitor alongside him, or right ahead of him, I should say, nose to tail, Jordan Rick-Segrini. They will do battle on the real track next week at Sonoma. I'm getting some practice laps in here, and there's a send up the road. That was Cam Jordan on Brickley going for it again, and then behind them, Rick-Segrini on Wan Shi Lin. So it's getting a little spicy up at the front of this group.
Oh, and that's a little bit of traded pain. I'm not sure about that detail there for Cam Jordan, but I think Brickley just kind of saying, hey, this is my spot. You're going to have to work even harder than that in the side-by-side if you're going to get that done by the start-and-finish line.
There's Cam behind the wheel here, getting after it, chasing Adam Brickley for 17th spot, jumping over the curbs there at turn 4. And all the while we've been watching the battles midfield most of this race, keep an eye on that gap, top left of your screen, Salas and Castro. That has begun to come down a little bit as Jordan and Brickley fight for 17th. That lead battle, I'm not sure is totally sorted just yet.
Yeah, that lead battle, keeping an eye on the intervals, we'll get to in a moment. I will say with Cam Jordan, this is a home race for him. He's from Napa, California. Where are we? Napa Valley. So, first of all, welcome for making your home race. Second, he's been supporting the Special Olympics in Northern California on his ride here today. He wants to give them a solid finish.
Doing a great job here, and there's always a little bit of home field advantage that you've probably, I always say that's in esports, the esports world, because think about the track that you load up in iRacing or Assetto Corsa Competizione when you're, if you've got a track that's near you, it's probably common that you load up that track because you've probably got a personal connection to it. So I'm sure that's going to help someone like Cam Jordan, that he's probably got more laps around here than anybody else. And he's putting it to work right now, 19th place and trying to move up the order. That lead battle that we documented, half a second between Salas and Castro, and it is shrinking. Have a look, top left of your screen, last lap times. That was 0.3 slower for Salas, and how about Castro at a 1:43.817? That's one of the quickest laps we've seen at all today.
That was actually his quickest, but it had off tracks. So not only is he cutting as much sand as he can without, getting a furrow black flag, but also I almost wonder if Vicente started to cook his tires a little bit. You mentioned the possibility of the Continentals being safe for Castro. There's the chance it might have been both with how it's looking.
And how about this? Battle for a podium spot. The point values go down quite a bit after P3 and P4, so you would like to get the podium if you can, and Bellarmine is just hounding the rear tailpipes of Ethan Lampe, and because he sees Castro catching Salas, I think there's a little bit of extra motivation to get this sorted out, so they might have a shot if these front two tangle.
Yeah, right now they're in the popcorn seats from the upper deck at this point. I mean, popcorn seat would be within 5 car lengths. And I think the second group just hit the tire barriers. Did Bellarmine just slam the tires?
I think he might have gotten into it there. Let's have a look. Final corner, just trying to cut this ever so tight. Right here, going to turn in and bam, right there, clips the tire bundles. And I don't know that it's going to massively damage the car, but it certainly isn't going to help it. And he lost 1.3 seconds to Ethan Lampe.
I think, Kyle, he just got a break from the sim. That's about it.
Yeah. Yeah, you see him jumping. Oh, jumping the curb there. Yeah, you see the damage on the right front now. Doesn't look great, but could be worse. Up front, here's Salas, and now he has got his rear view mirror packed full of Andre Castro, and that number 34 is getting larger and larger.
Yeah, right now, need to find a way to be able to get around here. He's set himself up with this run as of late, though, to have at least 4 or 5 chances. He's got chances to make this move. You don't need to rush it, because if you rush it, Vicente will have a chance to immediately pass back. Now, if it's there, you take it.
I don't think he's going to wait very long if he gets the opportunity. He is in focus mode, tongue hanging halfway out of his mouth right now. He is absolutely on it, running incredibly quick lap times and about to put Salas in his rear view if he can keep this up. And where do you make this pass? Is it too early? Do you wait any longer? 8 minutes left on the board.
Honestly, that run through the tire barriers here. Here through the final chicane. Going to be one of your best opportunities, honestly, Kyle. But with how it's looking, wouldn't be surprised if it's turn 4, because that's been one of the more brave sections, and Castro might be close enough to send by that rate.
We'll keep our eyes on this front too, because this is the battle for the win in the first round of the Toyota GR Cup North America Esports League. Cash and glory on the line in all these races and for the championship title. Both of these drivers would love to leave virtual Sonoma with some cash in the pocket and points on the board. Oh, big slide there from Castro. He was chasing it there a little bit, Justin.
Just gotta go, just gotta try and find it. But now the tough thing. Now that Salas sees him there, it's also the counterpoint. Was Salas trying to save himself to be able to then charge away? It's almost a tire chess match where try and trick one to push as one of our wild cards having a problem.
That's Aiden Yoder off at turn 11. And we'll check back in as the front battle. Whoa, this was with a head of steam too.
Yeah.
7 of Blake Town into his inside. Runs out way wide. Does he turn in right here? Oh, it just throttles up, and I think it's going to loop around on him.
That was an awkward line in the first place, I think. It's not the contact, it's just simply, I think he was just trying to get the diamond, and because he had to basically change lanes mid-diamond and not come down, just spun him out. That's the only thing I think.
Yeah, no TC on. Whoa, there's Sudik in the 87 going for a bit of a slide, and Chris Wetz, 71, jumping up the outside. Wanshi Lin's got some damage on the right front of that car as well. But yeah, I think, no traction control on this setup. It is a fixed setup, so everyone's running the exact same parameters as far as the suspension and electronics. So maybe if that's something that he's used to leaning on, you don't really spin the tires a lot in these cars leaving corners, but at a line like that, and you're gassed up and in a low gear, in first gear, you've got enough torque to rip those Continentals loose to the pavement.
I will say, this battle for the race lead, Castro is still knocking on that door. He's been within a couple tenths of a second for the past couple laps. Just 3.5 estimated laps to be able to get the job done. And when you're looking at the viewpoint, Vicente has been strong in road courses at Coke. He's been strong in the sim in general. He's been building up experience in late models and trucks, in real load stock cars. He's also been a multiple-time winner in go-kart racing. We touched upon. He's got a lot of expertise to keep an eye on, and you can see him communicating with the spotter, JD Laird, as well as his paint designer, to try and get things detailed down.
Through the S's, and Castro is all over the rear wing of this lead car. Battle for the lead, under 5 minutes to go. And if this is any indication of what we're going to get this season, Justin, I think we're in for a very good treat, because, if you remember last season, they're both off track there at turn 10. If you remember last season, Sonoma, we didn't have a ton of side-by-side battles for the lead in the real series, but we got Dakota, and everything just popped off from there. I'm expecting to see a lot more of the same here in the esports side in this Toyota GR Cup North America Esports League. Now, 4 minutes to go. Battles elsewhere on the racetrack will take you to if they get more interesting, but this one is for the top step.
Castro just waiting for the right chance. And you're right about a lot of the back and forth. When it becomes go time for a race like this, this is where this car really shines and why so many people love to race with it. You can race aggressively when the time is needed. Here comes Castro, he's got a chance.
Didn't take it that time, but you mentioned into turn 4, that's really where he finds his advantage, and you can see why. Salas just a little bit too much curb there, jumped, kind of slid across the pavement, and it opens the door into 4. The challenge is if you don't complete that pass, you're on the wrong side of the track here, heading into turn 5 at the carousel. So that's all something to keep our eyes on. There's been some trouble for Sudik in the 87, but we're going to keep you here now as we stay focused up front.
It's not been Sudik's race, but it is Castro's chance for the race. What a send to the outside. That's not going to stick with the marbles.
No, too far out, and I don't want him to burn up his opportunity this soon either. Wait till you've got your best opportunity and go for it. I don't think you're going to get a second chance with someone like Salas at the front of this field. They're not going to make a myriad of mistakes. You might get one, and you have to pounce on it.
With how it's now looking, absolutely is going to be towards the 1. These two know each other. They were even working with each other just a few months ago in Indy for PRI, for the motorsports conventions. It's going to be an awkward time at the racetrack, to say the least, if things get ugly.
Yeah, they're only going to have 2 laps left to battle here. And Salas had a very good final sector. That'll put some distance on Castro, 0.3 of a second. The battle for third is still Lampe and Belliman. This one could also get interesting. So could this. Darling, Polasek, Sever in the 39. And then you look down the order some more. Jordan Rick-Segrini, Cam Jordan, Weston Workman for 20th.
Yeah, obviously, bell time, clouds over the racetrack too. That usually, for some reason, intensifies things, but it also means track temps are dropping aggressively. Lots more grip to close out the race on the circuit.
Here comes Workman to the inside of Cam Jordan at turn 10. That was a brave move. Here comes Wanshi Lin. They're going to go 3 abreast down here into the hairpin, but Lin is not late enough on the brakes to get there. Then it's Wetz and Lin behind him. They're side by side, and just a lot of shifting and shuffling in the final 2 laps of this race, still yet to come.
Yeah, you have to be able to finish, though. That's the thing with how it's looking. Lin's lucky to still be on the track because of that wall contact in front with the tire barriers earlier.
But a little miscalculation.
But back to these two. This battle for third, still a fair bit back.
Yeah, Lampe and Belliman, they're not going to have a shot at the win unless Salas and Castro come together. That is still very much a possibility, but they are left to fend for themselves. They've got no pressure from behind either, so gift and a curse. Here's Polasek to the inside of Paul Darling. This is a battle for 6th. Darling jumps the curb and clears Polasek again.
Good defense once again, coming up to that estimated white flag this time around. We'll have to keep an eye on Barney. Castro is trying to cut through as much sand as possible to try and get as close as he can for a send.
And here's Belliman really late on the brakes, chase in Lampe, but through the start-finish line. This time through, I'd expect to see the white flag in the hands of the iRacing flagman. There it is, 1 lap to go here at Sonoma in the first round of the Toyota GR Cup North America eSports League. Vicente Salas leads by 0.2 of a second over Castro, and for third, it's the same gap.
Now a big send, though, from his ERA mate and rear-wheel co-worker. Castro right on the doorstep again for an arrow lunge. He tried it coming out of the carousel towards turn 7 before. He's looking like he might try it again.
Down into turn 4, running out of opportunities. That might have been his best corner on the track, and he wasn't able to steal it there.
I don't know if he's close enough to be able to try the move he was trying previously, but I don't think the outside Kyle is going to work. We didn't see it work before. It hasn't worked all day. Vicente just needs to protect to the inside, and he can do it.
Yeah, he's got a 2.5 of a second advantage over Castro. It is going to be very challenging to make a pass anywhere in the S's. It's going to have to come down to turn 11. As it always does, here he goes to the inside. Here comes Castro alongside Vicente Salas through turn 7, and he didn't get it done, Justin, but this is it. This is the last half a lap.
Could have used the door if he wanted to. He didn't. But Castro, it's definitely on for that final send through the chicane. Castro just needs an hour car length, and he can get alongside cleanly if he can.
Last set of corners, turn 10. Castro's going to have to come from a mile back down here at turn 11. Does the door open? He's going to send it. Here he comes. Salas covers.
That was aggressive. Here we go.
Checkered flag waving. It's going to be a drag race to the line. Castro is closing, but it's not going to be enough. Vicente Salas is going to win the first round of the championship in the Toyota GR Cup North America Esports League by 1.7 of a second, I should say, over Castro. And then for third, it's Lampe over Belliman, and the rest of the field is still battling to the stripe. Here's Hutchinson, Cofford, and Stewart down here at turn 11.
Well, Stewart definitely missed the corner. That might cost him. He's at least 15th, but it could have been much higher with that big of a send. How about that to close out the points? Top 15.
Hutchinson and Cofford and Stewart. The rest of your running order, and here's Austin Farr in 16th. Rickley, Soto, and Rick Segrini. These two will be racing each other all the way to the stripe. But it'll be Soto, Rick Segrini, and how about Weston Workman in the JBL GR86 from dead last to 20th in that race. That was a heck of a drive.
I think 33rd actually, but
yep.
If he gets qualified down, he might be able to actually have a shot at winning one of these.
Malone and
a joke.
Blaustein, yes, 25th was down to just a 10th between them. But how about Salas and Castro? That was an excellent battle between them two. Let's go back and have another look at really the last half a lap between these two, because it got fierce right here at turn 7. We'll go back a little bit further and watch it formulate here. Castro gets a run on the backstretch, and he could have forced this, Justin, but the expectation is that you race clean and fair, and I think they did just that.
Yeah, right here, Vicente just missed the apex, slid his back tires right there. Castro, anybody else probably would have fed him the door and made a door-to-door contact side by side to the S's with that opening. But again, these two working with each other, Jesse Wuji Motorsports, from my understanding, at that point, it's you race how you want to be raced, and they wanted to respect each other. Respectful finish for Castro. He wasn't going to make the launch from here, but no surprise, Vicente blocked it off just in case.
Yeah, he tried, and it wasn't, he just kind of apexed early and covered it off, and I don't think Castro really wanted to force it there. I think he knew that there was no real chance that that was going to work out, but Salas gets it done in style here at Sonoma. What a battle, what a race we saw at the front. I'm glad it really got super interesting right at the end there, so we could cover all of that. Here's a look at your race results, though. A thrilling start to our championship, Justin.
Yeah, an exciting race, an exciting finish. Vicente Salas, as you mentioned, picking up the opening race win for this series this season over Andre Castro. Ethan Lampe setting the pace early on, but finished top 3. Thomas Bellman, very quietly yet again, finished top 5 in 4th. Micah Hendricks to top 5. Paul Darling makes his way to 6th. Michael Polasek made his cuts late. Christopher Severt, he recovered a couple spots to 8th after getting turned around. Matt Adams, a part of that grouping 2, back to 9th. And Kevin Rold, he ends up winning the war over Nate Stewart, finishing 10th after Stewart's issues after Stewart ran away.
Yeah, and then Matt Friedman in 11th place. Cameron Martineau in the number 38 comes home 12th. Hutchinson in the 26th, and Alex Coughlin and Nate Stewart. Stewart gave away a couple of those spots there right at the end. He'll be pinching himself for that one, and I think he'd like to do a little bit better next time around when we head to Sebring. Austin Farr, Brickley, and Soto, Rick Segrini, and Workman. We'll see those three, Soto, Rick Segrini, and Workman, all racing next week in Sonoma, California in the real series. Wan Shi Lin, 21st, then Cam Jordan, Chris Wetz, Elliot Budzinski, Miguel Colon. He was the center point for a bunch of battles in this race. Ben Blaustein, Andrew Sharp, Blake Townend, Christian Minzies, and Mauricio Lozano, the rest of your top 30.
31st, Adrian Yoder, then last in lead lap, though, Nicholas Sudik. He got bounced around a fair bit, recovered to the mid-20s, and then had the incident referred to in the final laps. He's going to hope for a cleaner one next time. Justin Azir survived to be on the lead lap after his incidents. Jason Landry, Ryan Doucette laps down, and then your DNF list. Keelan Terry, I asked around in the driver's lounge that drivers have before today, their thoughts on today. Keelan Terry said slow. He finished 6 laps down, unfortunately. Rice Pudo with DNF in 37th, 5th, along with McKenzie, Sam Adams, Giovanni Romero, Max Hewitt, Alon, with the last of those on the grid. A bad first lap for John Giesbury. He finished all the way back in 43rd, dead last.
Yeah, and if we go back and talk about the race in general, we talked about how the beginning of the race is really where most of the dramas were. But beyond that, the racing was generally pretty clean. A lot of single car incidents, and then the big one was just miscalculations, specifically at turn 11. That's something that we probably won't have to deal with quite so much next time out at Sebring, Justin, but there were some simple mistakes that cost some people big this time.
Yeah, quite simply, a lot of those, like Nate Stewart especially, we're talking about him being possibly in the top half of the field for the points, or rather, I should say around 8th or 7th. The pace was there. You have to be smart on moves. And guess what? All it takes is one bad move, one bad decision, and it puts you back on the pylon, and that's what happened for so many of our drivers today.
Well, let's talk with a couple of them. Ethan Lampe comes home in 3rd place, and Ethan, P3 in this race. The battles were fierce all day long. You had a shot at the lead early, it kind of got shuffled back out, and then it was a battle for just the podium spot. But take us through your race today, because it was thrilling watching you battle with Thomas there at the end.
Yeah, man, it was a tough race. Vicente and Andre are very hard to beat. They're both very fast drivers, so staying with them the whole race was a big challenge, but they just got the best of me towards the end. They managed their stuff a little better, and we came home with a P3.
Talk about the tire wear management you're hitting upon right there. How tricky was that with how the pace was being settled through the field and how to manage that while also keeping up with the leader?
Yeah, it's tough sitting in second and third because there's a bit of a push when you're behind the car in front. So especially going through the S's and some of the other sections, the high-speed corners, it just tears up the front. So managing that's really tricky. But Andre managed to do it much better than I did. So he was able to stay with Vicente, and I got dropped back a little bit. But it was a fun race. Thomas was catching up to me at the end. We battled for a little bit, so yeah, I had a lot of fun.
Ethan, thanks so much for your time. Congratulations on picking up some points and some cash, and we'll see you at Sebring.
Thank you.
Andre Castro comes home in second place in the number 34. And Andre, the battles today for the lead got a lot more interesting at the end than I think we were anticipating up here. You just lit the afterburners and chased down Salas from a long ways back. How did you manage to find that extra gear and run him down?
It's pretty simple in Gen Z terms. I locked in. No, but I kind of just, I don't know, over the whole race I got more and more comfortable with the rhythm that I was running around the track. And obviously after I made a mistake and kind of went off in last second, I felt like I had to, make up for that and try to run him down. I was surprised, honestly, because for the first half of the race, it felt like, the top three were all pretty similar, and then fourth and fifth were, right behind us, right in our toe. And so I didn't really expect to gap everyone else that much by the end. But yeah, I was able to catch him back up, and I think maybe I had one or two shots at it. Yeah, it was hard, obviously when you're right behind someone, you can't really see the apex too well. But you have the draft, so it makes up for that. But yeah, I'm really happy with the run there. Honestly, I actually barely made it into the league anyway. So like by times in the time trials. So second place is really, really good. Really happy, and great job to Vicente. Like fair play to him. We've met through, we both work with Jesse Widget Motorsports in the Xfinity Series, and with the E-Racing Association sponsoring both of us in this race. So it's awesome to get a 1-2 for ERA for the E-Racing Association there. So thanks to everybody there. And yeah, it was awesome. Had real life JR Cup driver Gresham Wagner up in the spotter stand, so that definitely helped out, keep me calm and stuff. But yeah, I felt like I did a good job. Maybe, definitely there were a couple moments at the end where maybe if I had played it perfectly, could have had a chance. But he did a great job defending, and glad we finished 1-2. So that was really fun. I really enjoyed it.
You mentioned some of that dynamic, having the rear world spotter. Also, a lot of that virtual experience, especially with Vicente winning a lot in ERA, obviously, and whatnot. How did that dynamic play in with those final laps, knowing you were catching up to Vicente? In fact, you got alongside for the final lap when he missed that apex out of the carousel out of turn 7.
Yeah, I mean, my intention was always to race clean, so I wasn't gonna, take him out. I wasn't gonna hit him up the back or anything. So I'd probably get penalized anyway. So, but yeah, it was, it was always my intention to race clean. And honestly, I was very happy with my performance in the first place. So I knew that, I was gonna give it everything to come out on top. But no matter what, which one of us won, it was gonna be a good day. So I knew I didn't want to throw it all away, especially having that gap back to third, maybe 4 seconds. I didn't want to lose an easy second place. So yeah, it was just trying to calculate the risk, being I guess intelligently aggressive there at the end. Tried to do that, and yeah, I got alongside him, but just wasn't quite able to pull it off in the end. So we'll see. Maybe look it over tonight, see what I could have done different. But definitely really excited to get a good start to this series, and can't wait for the next one.
Thanks, Andre. Appreciate your time. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Vicente Salas wins the opening round of the Toyota GR Cup North America eSports League, and it didn't come easy. There were some times when you had to battle some people behind you, in front of you, but you were able to hold off Andre Castro in the late stages of that race. It was a thrilling battle to watch as Andre ran you down on the final couple of laps, and he tried, but you held him back. I saw the elation as you crossed that stripe. What's it mean to win in the opening round of this series?
I'm super excited. I randomly stumbled across the time of track for this series, and I was like, you know what? I want to give this a try. So I ran a few laps, ended up qualifying for it. And to show up here and have such a fun, clean battle with Andre, who I've known for years now, was super, super fun. So just glad to bring home a 1-2 finish with him, clean race, and hopefully put on a good show for the fans.
How was it trying to adapt to this car? I'm not sure the experience beforehand. Well, how was that trying to adapt that experience that you've had from the stock car side as well, what you picked up with the late models, and of course Coda last week, and put it into the GR86 today?
It was definitely a task, just because this car is so different. I think it's more of a momentum-based car. You know, you don't want to brake too hard. You don't want to stop it too hard going into the corner. You really want to focus on your roll speeds, having good exits. Whereas a stock car, I feel like it's a lot more point and shoot. You know, you really want to get in there hard, stop the car, get it pointed straight for exit. So I feel like those are the two biggest differences. But overall, I think each thing definitely helped carry into this. And especially with the racecraft, you know, we were so bunched up there for most of the race. So just trying to maintain the lead, you know, keep that gap the same, and try and control the race.
Vicente, thanks so much, and congratulations on a job well done. It was just a blast to watch you up here slicing and dicing with this. So best of luck to you when we see you at Sebring and beyond, and enjoy this one. It's hard to win, and it's just amazing to watch this battle. So congrats and enjoy it.
Thank you, guys. And real quick, if I could thank everybody at Canaan Esports for the support, JDR Graphics for painting a beautiful car, Miramar Financial, E-Racing Association, and just everybody that supports me. I am so grateful for everybody that gives me the good energy, supports me, and helps me do what I love. So just thankful for everybody, and hopefully we'll carry this momentum into Sebring.
Vicente, thanks so much. We'll see you next time. All right, and with that, Justin, we're going to wrap things up here in just a moment's time, but what a battle. Sonoma, California, man, it puts on a show, doesn't it? And with that out of the way here at Sonoma, let's have one last look at the results before we ship everybody off to virtual Sebring and go for a battle in round 2 on the bumps at the old airfield. I'm very excited about that, Justin, but first up is the Real World Toyota GR Cup North America Series next Saturday and Sunday right here on GT World.
I think this really sets the table for some of the expectations you can have for Sonoma next time out, because pretty clear, if you're able to have the solid pace, if you're able to conquer the elevation changes, as long as you don't aggressively send yourself off the racetrack like we've seen in some, it was the type of race today, at least on the virtual side, where you can do very well. When we've seen that for many of these drivers today, Kyle, I think for the real world, it's going to be a fun one to see which drivers, especially some of those who just got the virtual experience, do well next time.
I can't wait to watch it happen. All on GT World next Saturday and Sunday. It's the first weekend of the SRO Motorsports America Series events for the calendar year. If you're in the Napa Valley area or just anywhere in California, give it a shot. Tickets are still available. You can join us there at the racetrack in the real world. Looking forward to seeing all the smiling faces and the kickoff of the 2024 Toyota GR Cup North America Series. I'm Kyle Heyer alongside Justin Prince. Thanks so much for joining us here today for the first round of this amazing esports series, and we're going to see you in just over a month in Sebring for the second round right here on GT World. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time.